Hey, welcome. I am so excited about this conversation, the seduction of responsibility and how that's going to impact your life and has, and you might not be aware of how it has. And in this conversation, you're going to learn more about what that means. One of the things that I talk about a lot, and if this is your first time being on the show. Welcome. Glad you're here. Hope you find some value of this. And I always encourage you to check out all the other things that I do with the Potential Zone show, potentialzonegroup.com. But what I want to talk about is seduction, right? And effective seduction is not recognized. And just understand that, right? Like it's just like magic. Like we think something is magic if we don't understand how it is being executed or how the trick is being done. But once we understand how the trick is being done, it's no longer magic, right? And so, same thing with seduction. Like there are things happening that you are being installed inside of you that you might not be aware of at this point. And hopefully, in this show, you're going to get some nuggets that's going to support you in having the awareness to understand how things are installed inside of you and how you can use that to create the life that you want to create, which is my mission, right? Is to empower others to step into their fullest potential. So, want to touch base on that with seduction and what that really means and how that gets created within us, right? The other part is responsibility. So a lot of people hear this word and they have a certain meaning of what that may or may not mean. And responsibility is nothing more than my ability to respond, right? And if we don't understand how to exercise this, then what's going to happen and has happened and is happening is that there is going to be somebody that's going to take responsibility for your life in the areas that you don't want to take responsibility. And this is one of the biggest impacts, biggest factors, biggest unconscious factors that end up impacting entrepreneurs, which is what most of my clients are, as entrepreneurs. And that is this thing called the imposter syndrome. And the imposter syndrome is literally our ability to expand into the unknown and all the things that come up within that. Like we don't know we're attached to change until we start moving. And as we begin to expand and become the person that is required in order to create the life or business, whatever it is that we want to create, there's going to be things that we're going to have to let go of. And those things are the things that keep us playing at where we're at right now. And so if we do not take responsibility for our lives, we literally surrender our freedom, right? And freedom is just not given. Freedom is earned, right? And the more responsibility you take for your life, the more impact you're going to be able to make in this world. And the other part is like the more responsibility you take, it's like God, divine, universe, whatever you want to call it, ends up supporting that endeavor as well. I mean, you can sit there and do law of attraction all day long, but there's a massive part in the last part of attraction, which is action, right? And action doesn't necessarily mean doing the behavior. Action can also be looking at what is going on inside of you and asking yourself questions that let go of the things that keep you at the certain level that you're at, right? Because if you keep taking things on or not dealing with the things in your life that are required for you to look at in order to get where you want to be, if you don't recognize that, then what's going to happen is it's going to start causing where the more you take on, the more you're creating the probability of having a massive breakdown. Okay. Just think about the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, I just talked about this in the Mastering Potential workshop a little bit ago. And think about that. The straw, the blade of straw that broke the camel's back, right? Now, I get it. It's just a metaphor. However, it happens all the time. And so one blade of straw, like doesn't weigh that much, but think about how much straw would have to be on a camel's back for one more blade that would hit that threshold and hit the breaking point, right? Now, this is what happens with inside of ourselves. If we're not managing and inventorying our inner world, we're taking these different things on and hanging on to things that support us in creating what it is that we are already creating. And if we're not inventorying this and looking at, is this in alignment with what I want to create? Then what we're doing is we're literally setting ourselves up to create a catastrophic breakdown later. Like one box of fries, not that big a deal, right? One bowl of ice cream, not that big a deal. One McDonald's hamburger is not that big a deal, right? But done consistently over time, and the duration of time that you do that, it starts compounding, right? Like if you eat 60% of unhealthy food, that's going to have consequences down the road. If you keep listening to things that are putting thoughts into your head or creating a certain vibration within you that is not aligned with what it is that you want to create, there's going to be consequences around that. So we've got to take responsibility for everything that is literally touching the five senses of who we are and our sixth sense. Like what are all of the things that are impacting our lives? Like one of the big areas that a lot of people really, some do, and obviously most don't, is looking at what is our biggest organ, right? Like what is your biggest organ? Your biggest organ is your skin, right? And really start looking at what are the things that you put in contact with your skin. Like start looking at what you put in your deodorant. Like look at, there's aluminum in a lot of deodorant. You don't want to be putting aluminum into your system, right? The other thing is fluoride. Like we've all been conditioned to believe that all dentists recommend fluoride. Fluoride stains teeth, right? So when we start taking responsibility for looking at what it is that we are really introducing ourselves, impacting ourselves with, exposing ourselves to, these are the very things that start giving us the opportunity to start stepping into different areas of our lives, right? Because we all, I mean, our subconscious is lazy, right? It wants to take the easier, softer way. We are literally bent. There's a part of us that is bent to take the easier, softer way. However, if you watch the movie WALL-E, highly recommend that movie. There's a great, it's a great metaphor on what happens to the people when they get to this planet of utopia. I don't remember the name of the planet, but basically it was supposed to be utopia, where there's no resistance, there's no challenge, there's nothing that strengthens somebody. The resistance is what gives us the resistance in tension. The tension is what gives us the opportunity to grow and expand, right? Resistance is, I mean, resistance behind anything, resistance, we become attached to that, right? Like there's energy, it takes energy to resist something. And so the areas of our lives where we resist are literally areas of our lives that are opportunities for us to step into a whole expanded version of who we are. Oh, by the way, this is my brother. You got to check him out at icreateapparel.com. Love this shirt. And that's literally you be taking responsibility for all the narratives that you've created about your life, right? Like every single experience you've had in your life, the one common denominator is that you created a meaning about that experience. And I get there's trauma, there's things that have happened that have infused certain energies within ourselves, right? And it's our responsibility, our opportunity to transcend that. And us going through these are literally the things that are going to give you the belief within yourself to trust yourself, right? Like anytime you're stepping out into the unfamiliar, the most important component of that is that you are going to trust your ability to move through the process, right? And this is what takes more people out than anything. And I've certainly had many times in my life where I started getting into the unknown, the unfamiliar, and because my body took over, right? Like, oh my gosh, I don't like how I'm feeling. I got to shut this down. And I ended up retreating back to what was familiar. So that's where I tell people is learn to get comfortable with the unfamiliar, right? Like we've heard, get familiar with the unfamiliar, get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Like to me, they're both oxymorons, because the more you become comfortable with the unfamiliar, because every time we step into the unfamiliar, our nervous system is going to respond a certain way. It's training our nervous system to support what it is that we want to create. And the more awareness we have with that, the more we're able to sit in that space of the unknown and allowing our nervous system to synthesize and to integrate and become the new version of who we are. The more we're able to hold space for that, the bigger risk we're going to take, right? So the more you take responsibility for the narratives that you have created about your life, the more freedom you're going to have, right? Because we really don't have choice if we're not looking at what the program has created, because by the time we're 35, 90% of our life is automatic, right? Like it's running off of all the programs and the conditioning and all the what the nervous system has created are like our autonomic nervous system, right? Like our personality, right, is our personal reality. And so the more we become aware of that, then the more we can get intentional about creating the life that we really want to create. Because life doesn't happen to you, life doesn't happen for you. Life happens through you, right? So you are the creator of your life. Like every single thing you are experiencing throughout the day, you are the one that's interpreting what the quality of that experience is, right? And the more you get in touch with that, the more you can understand you can be going through the most challenging things in your life, and you can create a win-win situation for yourself and just going, this is part of the preparation process to expand me and to teach me who I get to be. Because the more I can go through these areas of my life, the more effectively and efficiently I'm going to move through the thresholds that keep me playing small. You're the one that gets to determine that journey, right? And so the more you get intentional, the more responsibility you take, and step into your ability to respond. Your ability to respond. I know about you, and I promise you, had some opportunities with it today, right? I would rather be a person that responds and able to hold space and able to be graceful with myself and with others as I move through the unfamiliar, right? Through the uncomfortable, get more familiar with the uncomfortable. And the more you do that, the more you're going to be able to allow things to unfold. Patience has not been my virtue throughout my whole life. I'm an Aries, and Aries have not been known to be very patient. My moon is Scorpio, my ascending's Aries. Like I'm like, yeah, right. And so that becomes one of my greatest opportunities. And so understanding like the things that come up that causes resistance in us is our greatest opportunity. And you can move through those thresholds basically three different ways: cognitively, behaviorally, or unconsciously, subconsciously, right? Like rewriting the program subconscious level through meditation, cognitively, through journaling, through talking about it. And behaviorally is just by doing it, right? It's like some of our biggest fears. Like one of my biggest fears was having a meltdown on a webinar. Well, guess what? I had a meltdown on a webinar, and now I'm not afraid of it anymore because I've already had it, moved through it, lived through it. Life went on, and I was able to um, move through that opportunity. And because of that, I'm able to hold space for myself when technical issues come up. Life is life. Things come up. How am I handling it? And I'm still able to be present in whatever it is that I'm training on those webinars or workshops or whatever it is. So what is your biggest fear? What are you afraid of losing? What is it? What are your biggest anxieties? Right? And the more you take responsibility for this and look at where did these originally come from, and friends, understand, I mean, what I'm sharing with you in this conversation literally is like massively life transforming. This is alchemy on a massive, massive level. It's very, very simple, right? But yet it takes some serious discipline and some serious effort in the beginning, right? As you continue to do it, it becomes more part of your automatic nervous system, and you are inventorying all the things all the time. But in the beginning, it may seem like, wow, this is just a lot of work. Like inventorying 40 to 60,000 thoughts that we have a day. That's a little extreme, right? But that's how many thoughts that we have every day. And unfortunately, 80% of those thoughts for most people is negative, right? So in the beginning, it's going to take a little bit of effort to change the direction of the momentum, right? And inertia is breaking that inertia, getting out of that rut that we have created. We have created that, right? And some of how we created that is obviously in the environment that we were raised in, the environment that we put ourselves in. Like we are homeostasis, which means we love balance. It is natural for us to balancing out. So if we put ourselves in an environment that is not aligned with what it is that we want to create, the environment's going to become stronger in our willpower. And that's where it's really important for us to look at, how is your environment supporting you? How is your environment? And now when I say supporting you, there could be the component of it where your environment keeps supporting the fact that you're not able to do something, right? And then we can blame our environment and say, well, it's their fault. No, it's not. It's your responsibility to make the choices that you got. And I have compassion for people that are put into situations where they made decisions based on with the information that they had at that point, and then they get further into it, and then they get introduced to a lot of new elements of what that relationship does or that environment has, and they evolve and they get to make choices on what they're going to do. It's like, what are you committed to? Right? Like really looking at what are you committed to? And if living your dreams, living your fullest life, if you value that as much as you valued, say, your child's life, you would be unstoppable. Right now, I get it. I'm human. I've got my things that I get to work through all the time. And this has been a lifelong journey for me. I didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to change this around. But friends, understand, I didn't want to live to be past the age of 25. Like when I got into this thing called adulthood, did not like it, wasn't a fan of it, and wanted to end it as soon as possible. And I was almost successful at doing it. Like my car accident was my greatest failure. And being able to switch that around, I've been able to live twice as long as what I wanted to live before, right? So it is possible, right? Let me be a reflection of what is possible. People don't get where I'm at from where I came from, and all the things that I have done very intentionally to end my life, right? It's incremental steps every single day. So what if you took responsibility for your life today, right now, in this moment, and you decided to change your life 1% every single day? 1% every single day. What would be that one thing that you would decide is 1%, right? Like reading 10 pages of a good mind altering book. Listen to something 15 minutes of an audio that expands your mind, committing to being on these shows every time that I have them, right? Like really looking at changing how you talk to yourself, right? Like this is what I tell my clients is like, get in front of a mirror in the nude and get in touch with how you talk to yourself. Like that is a really revealing exercise and getting in touch with what that inner voice is telling you, right? Because how you communicate to yourself is how you think other people are thinking of you, right? And that's where taking responsibility, and this is one of the areas that I get really passionate about, because ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is not bliss. It's dangerous. And there's some people out there, big influencers, that are being very ignorant about some of the messages that they're putting out there. And one of them is just don't give an F what anybody thinks of you, right? And I get why they're saying that, because it's determining what you're focusing on, right? But see, what determines what they think of you is you, right? So get in touch with the fact that you are the one that's creating the narrative, right? Like you are the one that's causing the pain and suffering in your life because of how you interpret the experiences, right? So to me, that is the greatest opportunity. I care what people think about me. Not that I'm some narcissistic, although I've got moments like I can get there, right? I care what people think about me because it's a reflection of them. Not me, it's a reflection of them. Like I get it. Some people aren't into bald guys. Some people aren't into bald white guys. Some people aren't into tall guys, whatever, right? I get it. But it's not a reflection of me, it's a reflection of them, right? So I want to do all I can to support people in understanding how amazing they really are and get them to take the responsibility. Because, friends, if you're not taking responsibility for your own life, somebody else is going to sign up for that. And then you are subject to whatever it is, to whatever their agenda is, right? The educational system was set up to create employees, right? And I think everybody should entertain entrepreneurship at some level, because in doing entrepreneurship or even playing golf, right? Like I think everybody should go out and learn how to play golf, just for the fact of getting in touch with different components of who you are, right? Because this is what's going to determine of what you expand. Like, I mean, just think about some of the things that people have accomplished in their life, like being a parent. Like, holy man, that's a massive responsibility, right? Like, okay, you get somebody pregnant or you get pregnant, obviously, depending on which side of that equation you're on. And then you go through this whole thing, body transforms, the relationship transforms, and then boom, this new being is in your life, and everything in your life has to change in order to adapt for that being. What if that being, that new thing that you bring into your life is your dream, like is your vision, is your mission for what you want to create? Like there's so many things that we go through naturally as humans that reflect our ability to adapt and overcome, right? Like the outcome is always going to be a reflection of what you're able to overcome. So what area in your life do you want to create, and what is it that's standing in the way for making that a possibility, right? And this is where getting mentorship, like getting into courses like masteringpotential.com is an awesome workshop to really support you in seeing what is possible. Potential is the actualization of possibility, right? That's what I teach people to do. Is it's not that it's not in you, it's you accessing it within you, and then getting clear on what it is that you want to happen, and then having strategies so that you can execute whatever is necessary to manifest what you want to design, right? To what you want to create. So I appreciate you being here, my friends. Love it when you guys show up. Hope you found this of value. Be sure to check out masteringpotential.com and be a part of the community over at the mastering or at the potential zone group.com. We'd love to have you and support you any way that we can in manifesting the life that you want to create. So my friend, I appreciate you being here. Love and appreciate you. And we'll see you next time. And until then, live like your life depends on it, because it does. And you deserve the best, my friend. Be blessed.